And welcome back to The Wrap. Well, Pope Francis is wading deep into the climate change debate. In a leaked letter to bishops, the Pope calls for a worldwide effort to fight climate change. And we quote, numerous scientific studies indicate that the greater part of the global warming in recent decades is due to the great concentration of greenhouse gases given off above all because of human activity. The Pope says man is causing climate change. Interesting. What does his powerful voice do for the debate? Is President Obama going to say, see, the Pope agrees with me, Heather Hansen?
Well, without a doubt, he'll bring it up, without a doubt. But I agree with some, and I think we're going to hear from Jeb Bush, who says this. Many of us don't look to the Pope for scientific or economic guidance. We look to the Pope for religious guidance, those of us who look to him for that. So I don't think that for many it's going to make a lot of difference. But it does give those that are arguing for climate change issues a little bit more ammunition, I guess.
Let me rephrase the question to you, not see what Pope Francis said. Right. Can President Obama say, see what Pope Frankie said?
Oh, Frankie.
Frankie. Yeah.
Here's what I find fascinating about this that nobody's talking about. Unlike Democrats, Republicans, whatever, the Pope has no political axe to grind here that I can imagine. Whether he was, whatever he came down on. Now, what I'm anxious to see, and it comes out on Thursday, is what research he's relying on, what research was done. Because if there's anybody who you would anticipate would be objective, you would think it would be the Pope. That doesn't mean that his analysis is right or not, but I can't wait to see it, because this may give us a glimpse of some more objective research, which is all I've ever wanted. I've never said I believe it, I don't believe it. All I want is non-tainted science by politics. Right. And I think we probably have our best chance of getting that from Pope Frankie.
Interesting. You think Bill Nye the Science Guy is in his ear? Could it be Joe? Well, it's not Joe Bastardi, and I know that.
Given his hostility to religion, I'm not sure what he's doing or not doing with the Pope. And I think, for the record, the Vatican typically has very high-level scientists.
You would think.
They do, but we should be clear. It's not apolitical. And I am a fan of this Pope, but he is far from apolitical.
What's
You're right.
in it for him?
What's in it for him is a global political economic vision that he does have. It's bigger than Democratic or Republican. In fact, the pieces of the encyclical that I was able to already access take a very strident anti-commerce position, a strident anti-banking position, and overall what troubles me, and I say this as a fan of this Pope, intellectually and spiritually, to come out swinging with apocalyptic language that talks about unprecedented destruction, widespread crop failure, economic ruin. I think he's missed the boat here. No, but it can't be true to predict the end of the world that way. And the track record of religious leaders...
Now, are you exaggerating? Did he say the end of the world?
Unprecedented destruction, widespread crop failure, economic ruin. I think Bill Murray in Ghostbusters called it things of biblical proportion.
Dogs and cats living together.
There you go.
Mass hysteria.
So here's what I would have liked.
You got to be careful.
So here's what I would have liked. Let him come out with moral authority about responsible use of nature. There are ways to get at this as a religious leader, because as a religious leader, I defend his right to speak on politics and the economy. Those are spiritual issues for many people who are religious, not just Catholics. I'm Jewish. I think they're religious issues, but not in a polarizing way, not in an apocalyptic way. That's just fancy language for end of the world stuff.
Unless he thinks he's got science that says he's right.
Even if he does.
Wouldn't you want him to if he had the science that said this was happening?
I don't want a person of that authority harnessing any science. By definition, science always replaces other science to go apocalyptic on us. I'd want him to speak with moral authority, but not this end-of-the-world stuff, which will only polarize the debate
Even
forever.
if he had evidence to that point, you would like him to sit on that evidence and not say it.
I'd like him to say it's evidence, not proof, and that's the difference.
Well, did he
share
say
the
proof?
evidence, the apocalypticism, the positioning
and you're
of
basing
certainty.
this on how many paragraphs have you got your hands on? Because nobody
I
else
thought the
has.
world was supposed to swallow us all up. Wasn't that what was supposed to happen?
Right, and that's
Earth opens up, I go in,
concern.
that's the end. Well, I don't go, but Heather goes.
But the
evil one.
In what you've read, because I've read parts of it too, they don't give any scientific evidence yet, Rick. So I agree. I think I agree with you.
That's what we have to see.
I think that if it's there, then someone has to talk about it.
Let's hear what Jeb Bush had to say about this. On the first day in the 2016 campaign trail, he clashed with the Pope on climate change. Bush, who says he converted to Catholicism 25 years ago, responded to the Pope's stance, saying, I hope I'm not going to get castigated for saying this by my priest back home, but I don't get economic policy from my bishops or my cardinals or my pope. I think religion ought to be about making us better as people and less about things that end up getting in the political realm.
So if the Pope has good science, and I don't know that he does, then Jeb's just going to ignore it because that's not what he should be getting from him?
I think it goes back to your original point that you don't get advice on these things from the Pope or from his
Unless
advisors.
it's somebody who runs a place called the Vatican, who Brad tells us has top-notch
I
science.
think it's a
I
little
would be
bit hard and
I'm
surprised.
shocked they
fast.
have good scientists. I didn't know they were known for
I don't
that.
think
They
that's
absolutely
enough.
are.
Really?
Remember, the
don't
word
think
science, scientere, to know, from the Latin, was a sacred act. And in fact, the Church preserved science when other parts of Europe in the Middle Ages were killing it off. I wouldn't just make such a hard line between science and religion. Just tone down the rhetoric, learn what we can from the best science, and then use that moral authority to make things better wherever you come down on the politics.
Heather,
of
last
this.
word, 5
If
seconds.
the science is there, I think that it changes the conversation, but I'm not sure it's there.
Okay, well,
a
coming
fair
up
point.
next, the Obamas threw a dinner party over the weekend that's causing quite a stir in the press. Were you invited? Stay tuned.